been in this building for a long time. We're not going to discuss quite how long that's been, but it's been a minute. It's really nice to be back, and it's really, really nice to be here on behalf of JUNTOS, which is an organization that means a lot to me. Just from a personal level, JoVonna's an amazing dancer, a woman, and humanist and thinker and creative, and so it's just a pleasure to be here with a similar cohort of like-minded artists and activists. So I gave you guys the cheat code, but I want everybody here to think about the last time in the course of your day, or your week, or your month, or whatever, that you were really moved by a work of art. Could be dance, it might be something else, it might be something in any form of artistic expression, but just think about that and hold that that feeling, because a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is it's kind of heavy. It's a lot of questions about what do I do with my life? How do I balance my career, my aspirations, my ambitions against the realities of making it as a working artist in this crazy city world, and then especially also what does it mean to be an artist in a time of conflict? With everything that's coming through the news on your smartphone all day, every day. And how that might impact your outlook and your trajectory in your own practice. And then what does it mean to be doing this kind of work in the world that we find ourselves in today? So as promised, I would like to see what's sort of art experience or piece of work that you've seen recently that's really moved you and stayed with you.
Cool.
And then as we go down, just say who you are, give a bullet point, when you graduated, and what you're doing now. Let's go right into it.
Cool. I'm Holly. I went to the Boston Conservatory. I graduated in 2015. And I'm currently performing in musical theater. And I have a dance film company called Wilder Project. I wait tables and I teach tap. And I'm studying to be an Alexander Technique teacher. So that's the current conglomeration of my life. And the last thing that I felt deeply moved by was Choir Boy on Broadway. Run, don't walk to see it. It's absolutely, I cried so much. It's truly stunning. And Camille Brown choreographed it, and it's just and they have student rush tickets for $30.
There's no compensation for that announcement.
Are you turning it over to me?
Yes.
Hi everybody, I'm JoVonna. I'm a graduate of the Fordham Ailey BFA program 2012. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Currently I am in my, but it was still fun though, sorry, I don't want to start. It was still fun. I'm currently in my 5th season with Elisa Monte Dance, and it's been an amazing 5 seasons with them. I also teach a lot. Right now I'm kind of teaching in Lake Placid at the Lake Placid School of Ballet and Dance. Our company is taking over and adding a modern curriculum. So it's been actually kind of interesting watching that from the ground up, and because that's been a 2 or 3 year process. My home-based studio is Academy of Dance Arts in Red Bank, New Jersey, which is 90 minutes outside of the city, but it's worth it because the students are great, the faculty is great. And I also babysit, so it's nice to have some tax-free, supplementary income coming in. I'm just gonna be honest. The last piece of artwork that has moved me. I'm gonna be quite honest, I haven't been going to the museums like I usually do and would like to because my schedule is insane. But I will say we just started working on this new piece called Dreamtime with Elisa, which is one of her works from way back when in the 80s, and it's based on Aboriginal Dreamtime, and so she encouraged us to look it up, so I'm kind of a nerd and love to read, so I did. And there were all these really awesome pictures of these deep blues and maroon colors, but in these really interesting swirls and all these other patterns coming in. And I was wow, it kind of really does look like a dream, but it sort of got my mind working on wow, maybe I should pay a little more attention to my dreams and how could I actually bring that new knowledge to the movement that I am trying to interpret physically. So yeah, that's it.
My name's Winnie. I'm also a BFA I graduated in 2014 from the program, and primarily I am a choreographer and a dance teacher. I started Mook Dance Company kind of like right after I graduated, and so we've been doing that for a little while. Julia dances with me, and I teach up in Westchester, and then I also work at Freed of London, which is a point shoe company. So I started that like legit the day after I graduated college. So I kind of did that like 9 to 5 thing for a little while and felt a little like confused and lost and like, did I make the right decision? And so then I left there for a little while, started focusing on teaching, but like you have to make money here. So then, yeah, I went back and now I kind of have more of a balance of, you know, I work at my day job for like 4 hours a day, and then I go and I teach kids and I choreograph, and yeah, I kind of went more the choreographer route in terms of trajectory. Oh, and then the inspiring thing. I went to go see Martha Graham do like a studio showing of this piece that Bobby Jean Smith is choreographing, or you know, and I watched her documentary about her. She's so cool, and I just have a big girl crush on her. And so she was gonna be there, and I watched like them. It was just like an open rehearsal, and just how powerful they were able, just how powerful it was that they were able to show like what it truly means to be a woman like in this world through movement and the music. And I just loved like just all the female empowerment that was there, and it was, I mean, it's a stunning piece. So I'm really excited to go to Joyce to like see the full thing. That was my last piece.
I'm Megan. I graduated from Purchase in 2013. I'm currently in grad school for social work, so I graduate in May.
You're almost there.
I pick up my cap and gown on Tuesday. I am not actively like pursuing career in dance. I dance still just for myself. I take class. I've been really inspired by anything that involves nature. Somebody I went on the JUNTOS trip with, Michaela, does a lot of dance in her hometown of Jackson Hole. Incorporating the mountains and nature, and that inspires me a lot. I've gotten into surfing a lot since I graduated, and there's just a lot of beauty in longboarding and connecting your like physical movement with something you have no control over. And so it's not really a concrete answer, but that's what's been inspiring me. And I think that nature is just really important, especially with our earth right now. And so any way to incorporate and bring attention and highlight the beauty of that has been big for me recently.
Wonderful answer. For me, it was, I saw Dearest Home from Abraham Emotion, who a dear friend dances with, and saw their the recent production of The Joyce, and something about, you know, the whole, there's no music to the piece. It's really fraught and sort of like interpersonal relationships, and it's like really beautiful push-pull sort of like dynamic. It's just, it's quiet. And so you can hear like feet on mylar and like the furtive coughs, and like that's it. And there was something about being in that room, in that experience for like an hour, and just watching bodies move through space in that way that was like, it just like sat you straight up in your seat. It was incredible. It's a lot of stuff, y'all. Y'all like really hustling and like doing the thing of being a working artist in 2019. Sort of in the midst of all of, you know, changes in the economy and gig economy, and how do we like structure our lives, and how do we come to terms also with like our notion and our, which is another word for a dream. Like, what's our dream for our careers in being artists? So I want to like jump right into when you talked about day after graduation, you're like, time to get a job. And so
My parents pushed that part.
okay, well that's real though. So what was so when you sort of slammed into that wall of like, I just did this incredible thing, I'm done. Don't ever talk to me again. And it's like time to get a job, time to wake up, be an adult, join Welcome to the Abyss. What was that like?
It's a lot of it was a lot of pressure. I definitely, like when I went on my JUNTOS trip, it was right before senior year, so I was already like kind of bugging out and freaking out. And I felt like a big kind of like weight that I needed to like pull my own weight now that, you know, I was independent and I'm not currently in school anymore. It was really confusing because I didn't know if I was like giving up or kind of like what my next step was. I knew like that I needed to work, but I didn't know how to navigate still trying to dance. You know, you work 9 to 5 and like how do you? And I think that kind of started the, you know, and maybe I can't dance right now, but I can make dance and I can do that on my own time and I can do what I want within that. And so I think that kind of the pressure of hurry up and get a job, I don't know, I think back and I don't know like if I would have changed it or if, you know, I would have tried to audition more or kind of what that was, but it was just a lot of expectation and a little bit of pressure like from parents and stuff. But I feel like it pushed me to then create my own work and kind of navigate it on my own terms while still kind of having some structure.
I really
Yeah, it was
relate
hard.
to that. Yeah, just like coming out of school, and I just went right into teaching because it was sort of handed to me like, here's a teaching job, and I was like, I don't really know if I want to do that, but it's dance, and so I took it, and I discovered like a year later I didn't want to do that, but it was like, okay, I don't know where, like there's nothing here for me of like the conservatory thing of you're dancing all day and it's inspiring you all the time, and how do I find that same thing out of school? And so I was like, well, I have my brother as a camera and I have a lot of ideas. And so we started, like, we didn't even start a company on purpose, it just sort of happened. And we made our own terms and made the work that like we wanted to see in the world. And
There's pressure too from you see everyone else getting jobs or gigs and
right.
you know.
And there's so much like shame around, and I've done it to other people too of like, oh, they stopped dancing, you know? And it's like, it's just, it's hard to avoid that. But it's like no one has the same, that's like the one path that happens to like 1% of people, and then everyone else, it's like you find your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then with teaching, so you mentioned you tried teaching, you're like, it's not for me. And JoVonna, I know that you also sort of had to go back and forth rebalancing what your ideas around your career was and what teaching meant to you, and how did that relationship in your head sort of evolve?
Well, I never wanted to be a teacher, like wasn't having it. I just didn't see it. I just really didn't see it for myself. I didn't think that I had the tools or for lack of a better term, I just didn't think that I had the tools to do it. But upon like going home and doing the one little gig that I had gotten after college, I was with a friend and he was like, JoVonna, I've known you since you were 8 years old and you mean to tell me you can't teach someone how to do one step, like not even like an 8 count. And I was like, of course I could do that. And he's like, well, if this is what the dance world is handing you right now, don't you think you should take it? If you're gonna turn down every other suggestion of like a normal person job, which is like working at a bank or like a restaurant, which I also didn't want to do. And I was like, you know what? I'll take the challenge. Let's see if I'm up to it. And I started teaching at my old studio, and then it kind of just like stuck with me. And I was like, maybe like the kids started gravitating towards me, and I was like, you know, sometimes it's hard to pick yourself out of bed and like go. But then once I was there, I was like, no, I really love this energy, this like give and take, this share of knowledge, because you're not just there feeding them information, they're also teaching you something as well. And also looking back on it, my life has sort of been primed for teaching, whether it's being like a teaching assistant. Growing up, I worked with children with cerebral palsy and sort of like movement dance therapy, which was super awesome. Of course, going on JUNTOS trips and having to teach not in my native tongue, but luckily dance is a universal language, so you know, you're always understood at some point or by the end of that. So, you know, I'm kind of glad that teaching was sort of pushed into my line of vision, because there is more than just I'm a dancer and I am just putting someone else's vision out onto the stage. And also just having a BFA, I was like, what are the boundaries that I can like push with that? Like I even started doing like plays recently, you know what I mean? So there's a lot that you can do with that. So open your peripheral vision just a little bit more. It will help, I'm telling you.
Teaching doesn't mean you like gave up either.
It
Like,
doesn't, it really
It has that stigma to it too, like if you can't do it, you teach. And,
Yeah.
like, that's not,
And that's not true,
Yeah.
because I think of it as my students are sort of getting the best of both worlds. Like, yes, I'm here being your teacher, but also you have a teacher that, you know, does plays, who goes on tour, who's been to this country, who's taught in that country, knows this language, or is, you know, works with this modern person or with this ballet person, and so you're, you know, they soak it up like a sponge, and it actually is cool other than just the teacher who comes in and like teaches you every day. Not that the other teachers who do that aren't interesting, but you know, it's just you're giving them like a real time, like up to the minute, like, you know, especially my older students who are like 14, 15, 16, you know, those formative years where they're sort of like, what am I going to do? I don't know, you know, so.
very open to.
And
Yeah.
and here's the big one, Megan. Or to get into it, what was the moment where you decided like, this is the thing I love? I mean, you
Yeah.
said you're still taking classes, they still
Mhm.
meaningful to you, but what was that moment and how did you arrive to it where you're like, my life is gonna it's gonna pivot, it's gonna go in a different direction, it's like a whole new world of adventure. What was that like?
That was scary. I think you all kind of touched on the idea of these shoulds that you have in your mind. This is what I should be doing. This has been my focus in life since, you know, 3 or however, whenever you started dancing. And so that was a big internal struggle for me, and that idea of I don't think failing was necessarily the way I felt, but I just had to restructure my view of myself more than my view of the world, because that was such an integral part of my identity. Actually, my shift kind of aligned really well with my JUNTOS trip. I had been double majoring through college because I never really could fully commit to one thing or another, and so I was double majoring in Spanish, and then JUNTOS came up as an opportunity, and I was like, this is perfect. I can dance, I can speak Spanish, I can go on this amazing trip and kind of combine it all. And I was reaching a point where I had to make some decisions, like financially with school, and really just deciding what I wanted for myself, which is easier said than done. So it was a long process of just being gracious, giving myself that time to adjust, and being honest with when I felt ready to make that change, because I was thinking about that for significantly longer than when I finally made that decision, because that's when I felt comfortable with it, and that's okay. And I think if you may hit that point, you may never hit that point, and just listening to yourself is what I learned, and whatever you need to do to reach a level of comfort with what you choose to do, whether that's auditioning, not auditioning, you know, wherever that is for you, and just being okay. And like, I think you mentioned the shaming, and it was more of like that self shame, like, you know, I should be doing this, why am I not?
Yeah.
So it's hard, but I'm super happy where I'm at, and I hit like a rocky couple years and a lot of change, and then figured it out, ish. You know, as much as anyone can.
Perspective.
Yeah, a lot of perspective.
Learn a lot.
Mhm.
There's a lot of letting go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
That was a moment. Okay, all right. Well, you also mentioned the way that this evolution in your life and your path coincided with your JUNTOS trip. And
Yeah.
so, for all of you, how did your experience working with JUNTOS, and whether you traveled or not, whether you were an ambassador, captain, like whatever your engagement. So talk a little bit about first how you've been involved with JUNTOS, and also specifically like how did it inform this decision making, and how did that change the way you saw yourself as a dancer and as a sort of citizen of the world?
I can go. So I went to Mexico between my freshman and sophomore years, and then I went to Guatemala after that. And then I did a 1 week Alumni Guatemala trip. And something that really changed me with JUNTOS was the shift in perspective in performing to being a human on stage and not just a body that moves and creates shapes and does cool stuff. But what in my life relates to the story I'm telling? How can I be honest inside my own body with the people that I'm seeing and actually make eye contact with them and communicate in a nonverbal way, which is what I love about dance already. And I think that is the main thing that has led me to both musical theater and dance film, is that I'm not personally interested in creating or partaking in art that isn't accessible to people who don't care about art. And what is so powerful to me about dance film is seeing dance in spaces that we live in and the people we pass on the street live in, and how we are all connected in that way, and the metaphors we can create in movement when you see dance in a kitchen or in a forest. And then with musical theater, telling stories where I'm a person in my body, and it challenges me in a way that is really scary for me, and that's when I know I'm growing. So I think that JUNTOS really highlighted that that's something that speaks to me a lot, and I've sort of had that with me as I've navigated the post-school ether. Someone said to me, "Oh, now you're a fluff in the universe," and I have not forgotten that. It's a scary thing, but it's kind of freeing, you know? So,
and is
yeah.
it that you came to, that you had had this desire to think about dance in sort of non-traditional venues, and I think of Pina Bausch a lot, especially if you think about you all in in elderly care facilities in, whether here in New York or in Guatemala or Nicaragua, but just bringing art and dance in a way that is outside of sort of very capitalistic, we're gonna sell tickets, we're gonna pack the house, how long's our run, who's auditioning, that whole calculus. And so was it that you had a desire to explore that, and JUNTOS gave you a pathway towards that, or was it that that idea sort of was generated within the JUNTOS experience, and then you were able to follow from there?
Yeah. I think I was interested in these ideas, but no one had asked me the things that JUNTOS asked me to do, and to be vulnerable in that way, and to look at strangers while I'm standing 10 feet from them and moving my body. And yeah, that just really is something that stuck with me and has inspired me to, those are the people that I want to make art for, and make it accessible. Because I don't just want to go see a house full of dancers seeing dance. That's great, but there's a whole world out there,
I think, sometimes a lot of, with the work that I create, kind of the point of it was that, a lot of people are scared of art or dance because they don't get it, or they don't think they're gonna understand it. So it's trying to create it in a way that's accessible to them, so that they're, more involved. They're invited to be there. They're not just sitting there and watching it.
Yeah.
For me, I think my JUNTOS trip too, was at the perfect time, because I had just kind of come to the realization that teachers didn't think that I was performing enough, or they didn't know who I was, or I had a teacher that was like, "You just look like you're just moving around, you look bored," and I was like, I'm giving my all right now, so what isn't translating, and whatever I was doing wasn't working, but I didn't know how to make it work. And that's when I went to lines, so I was trying to express everything all the time. And with JUNTOS, I remember a very specific scenario where JoVonna was trying really hard to get me to let it out a little bit more, and I kind of got it when I was there, because yeah, you're dancing right in front of people, they're right there, and you can see just how excited and stoked they are, like, to be there with you. And I think she kind of got it out of me, of like, how can I honestly represent myself, and honestly make my art in a way that is me, and less blocked and less worried about what people thought about me and everything. I kind of was able to let go of it and just dance how I wanted to, and for myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
It's
think
hard.
It is hard, but I think JUNTOS like gave me the 2 opportunities that I did travel with JUNTOS between my sophomore and junior year to Guatemala, and then the summer after my senior year of college, I went to Mexico. But those were like some of my like freest moments on stage. I like just didn't care, like not in a way that like I don't care about dance or like what I look like, but you know, you're not like you're not trying to like impress somebody, you know, like this is the grade that I'm gonna get because Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so is watching me get, like I have to get that
Or
part.
I need
like,
that part, yeah.
yeah, like I don't need that part. It's fine. That's work for me anyway. But yeah, I just love, and I also love. Jeez, I don't know. You're so
You're very
funny. Thank you. Maybe I should be a comedian. Actually, my students tell me that I should be a dance historian comedian. That's how they like put it. But and also I love kids, so I love like connecting with, I mean, they really are our future, like we're planting like little baby seeds in their brain, but just like, you know, even if you're totally wrapped up in what you're doing and then you like get eye contact with that person in the audience and it just like fills you with this like unexplainable like emotion. Like I kind of call it like the reverse effect of like the Grinch, you know, like my heart's already normal size, but then it really starts to like expand and like pop out of my chest. And also just I love that like cultural exchange, like seeing how like other people live, and like we're so lucky. Like we really have absolutely no reason to complain. I mean, America's questionable, yes. But like, you know, some of the things that I saw, like I just can't imagine growing up like that, or like not being exposed to dance. Like, how do these kids, you know, express themselves? How do these adults in these villages like express themselves? And I'm so lucky that I have that, and I'm not this tight like bottle of emotion. Well, maybe kind of, but you know, at least I have dance to like alleviate that pressure.
I agree with that. Yeah, that was one of my like things I loved most about JUNTOS, is I feel like there's a balance between, especially with traveling, giving and taking in your travel, and I think JUNTOS hits a really beautiful balance of valuing everyone that's part of it, and valuing knowledge and expression and language and movement, and doing that in a way that truly involves everyone, whether you're performing, whether you're watching, and then doing like the workshops that we got to do, and it's just engaging on a human level that I think can be a little more exploitive in different settings other than JUNTOS. So there's a lot of value in that.
I'm going to zoom out to that. First, a little bit of an aside. What was the experience for you teaching in Spanish, JoVonna? Like, and what did that do for you, and how did that feel, and what was that like?
I was like, oh my God, what? I didn't even get a lot. It's like, I only know textbook Spanish, and then, you know, like with all my Venezuelan friends, whatever they would teach me. It was like really hard, but like, it's amazing what your mind and body will do once you're like thrown into the moment. You know, like if you forget the words, you can be like, yeah, whatever. Like, what's the Spanish word for turn? Like una gira or something like that. Or something like that. And I'm just like, and they're like, oh, turn. I'm like, yes, turn, great. We're all like, it's like jarring at first, but I think once you like relax and realize like, okay, you have this like vocab, and also just like the power of touch. I mean, you also have to read people and be like, okay, this person clearly does not want their personal, you know, boundaries like invaded, but like getting them like turn this way or like bend this way or like look, you know what I mean? So like, it wasn't terrible. Scary at first, but it like wasn't terrible. But also the fact that I like taught in another language is like really cool. So I can like check that off my like accomplishment.
I think like 4 words, so I wasn't.
Well, I started like taking Spanish like at a summer like enrichment camp when I was like 12. I've always gravitated toward the Spanish language. I don't know why. It just like spoke to me, and I was like, I will follow this voice. And I took it in high school. I took it in like college. I actually wanted to switch to like Greek, and then I was really glad I didn't. I stuck with but I stuck big shift. Yeah, like whoa. But I'm really glad that I like didn't do it because you know, yeah, it came in handy, obviously. But you know, I have sort of like slacked off on my like Spanish speaking, which makes me really sad. I mean, like on a scale of 1 to 10, I was at a 6, and now I'm at like a 3.5. Maybe it's so bad, but I kind of would like to test myself again and maybe see if I could teach like in Spanish language again. I'm sure I could
It's
if I
easier
like.
too when you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in the environment, like as opposed to like reading a vocab list on the plane, like oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, I'm gonna sound like an American. Oh my god. Like you know, when you get there, it's fine.
I didn't speak a single word of Spanish, and the
Yeah.
first day we got there, she was like, "You're teaching warm up." When you are in a moment of like, I have no idea, you figure it out, and then it's like those moments happen a lot after school, and you're like, okay, I taught a class in Spanish only counting to 8, like over and over again.
Yeah.
Like you
Here
can
we go.
do,
We got it.
we're gonna do it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like a lot of the kids though enjoyed like teaching
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Like they
Yes.
helped me so much. Like they didn't think I was stupid. They just
Yeah.
like knew that we had two different lives, and then we're gonna share what we know.
That exchange was really
Yeah.
cool.
Well, so let's get, this is a little more of like the hardcore part of this, of like, I mean, of JUNTOS and of, you know, I'm thinking about my, you know, I mentored one of the JUNTOS ambassadors who went to Nicaragua this summer, and coincided with political unrest there, and she had to leave. And, you know, it's, I mean, this country's a dumpster fire right now, politically speaking, and yet there is an institutional sort of backup around what we expect around quality of life and amenities, infrastructure, things like that. But you leave this setting and you are confronted with the world writ large, and not just in traditional way that I think people who try to, you know, do good or something like that, and you know, go on their, what is it, Fordham? What's the go, Fordham go?
Oh, yeah.
Set the world on
The go
fire.
set, go forth, set the world on fire. Yeah.
Yes.
The
That's
go.
it.
I did one of those.
Okay,
Global
all right.
consciousness.
I'm not gonna swing at every ball that comes, like, I don't have to, we don't have to go there right now.
No, that's definitely it. Like,
No, sure. It wasn't that I didn't believe you. So, but I mean, but there is this thing of like, you're not only going there and saying, like, as doctors, you're not only there, you know, as somebody who's trying to, like, you know, who has telecommunications skill, you're contracted with a big international NGO, who is a small organization founded by JoVonna, you know, and this has been like a little NGO that could, you know, and has had this beautiful legacy that is built out and expanding programs, but it's a novel idea in this larger nonprofit space. And I used to do something a little bit similar in Haiti, sort of bringing artists and producing work in a place that is politically fraught, not just by happenstance, because of, like, for instance, the direct involvement in the United States of America, in our government, and our foreign policy over decades, right? And so you were talking about the students teaching you and how that upends the power dynamic of here are Americans coming to do something for us. What does it mean to each of you? Like, how did you engage with that question of power and privilege? What does it mean that you got to leave and come back? What does it mean that you came to a foreign place saying, here, I'm offering you something? So sort of, and that can go in a lot of different ways. So sort of however that bounces off your nervous system, just speak to that. Speak to what it was like in that way.
I just remember being really sad and angry whenever I would return from Mexico or Guatemala. You just realize the privilege that you have, you know. Also the privilege of having both of my parents you know, performing in a lot of orphanages and like seeing these small children without that like support system was just really, really hard. Just the access that I have to things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That I can afford to take the bus, that I can afford to like buy a slice of pizza, you know, go to dance class, go to college, you know,
Mhm.
like I'm sure that is, for some, you know, that is a very far away, you know, like concept. It makes you slow down and just sort of be gracious for everything that has come your way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because we do a lot of like running around in this country, especially like in New York City, you know, everyone's just like on their grind. But I do remember like taking the time to like slow down and like reset my perspective on the world and then on life,
Yeah,
my personal life, I guess.
totally. I felt like I was so surprised how much I received. Like, we go to teach and to perform and give, and everywhere we went, I felt like people were giving to me and trying to communicate with me and trying to dance with me. And like at an orphanage, they like gave me their one stuffed animal, and I'm just like, yeah, those are the moments that like stay with me. And it's like, we have our privilege and we have all of these resources, and that doesn't give us really like anything more as human beings
Right.
than anyone in the world. And just being able to receive this like beautiful, precious gift from another person was, yeah, profound.
Yeah. It's like your spirits like see each other, you know what I mean? Which is like a really beautiful like moment, and then a few tears.
I mean, it is hard to, I mean, especially like as a white person, like, you know, I don't even remember like what it's called, but it's like, you know, white people going in and like putting a Band-Aid on it and then like, you know, saying,
Volunteerism.
yeah, like, great, good job. And I remember consciously kind of trying to figure out how to avoid doing that, which was like hard, you know, because I wanted it to have meaningful experiences, but to not be, pompous and like, cool, look at this great thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my picture.
Yeah, here's my picture. And so I did find myself kind of trying to figure out how to navigate that
Mm-hmm.
and what that would look like and what that, I don't know, and how to do it, but I don't, you know, I still don't have it figured out or anything. But I remember being there and trying to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think JUNTOS was really my first, yeah, I think that's right. My first trip abroad where it wasn't a vacation. It
Mhm.
wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't me just, like I was doing something meaningful while I was there, and I think that was a really important piece on my like trajectory since then, cause it enabled me to fulfill my like love of travel in a way that felt more meaningful. And something that I've continued doing and being intentional about the opportunities that I do pursue and the ones that I don't, based on where I feel they lie ethically and where I feel comfortable with my positionality in going into them. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and did you all have to do fundraising for your trips? Did you encounter the refrain from people you were asking for money around, well, like, should we be sending medical supplies? Like, shouldn't we send textbooks or something? Did you have to encounter that of why it was a worthwhile and meaningful thing to be doing with your time and resources? Or did people kind of get it? Like, what was the response? I mean, knowing that, you know.
I think they like, I don't know, I didn't get a lot of like pushback, but I also wanted to stress to them like, I'm not going to the beaches in Costa Rica. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this isn't a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I received any pushback, but I don't think people really like, you know, it's family, you know,
Sure.
and like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we did fundraising at Purchase, which is a really art-centered
Mhm.
school, so I think that was really helpful in having people get it more than if had we been in a different setting for that.
Well, where should we go now? Hey, let's bring it back here. Let's bring it back to your careers in present day and where you are now. You're all balancing so much in your lives. Like, I just sort of sit here, like jaw drop. Like, wait, hold on. Do what? Like, do you personal assistant? Like what's going on?
No, I can't afford that.
Yeah, well.
One
They
day.
always say Beyonce has the
Hey,
same
Siri.
amount of hours, and I'm like, she's got a lot of help.
Help.
though. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how, did it feel like,
Beyonce has so much help.
Beyonce has 24 hours too.
I think 60 songwriters, like, yeah.
That's annoying.
so, and so did you feel like you had, whether it was institutional support from Ailey Ford or Boston Conservatory or whomever, did anybody give you like a guidebook? Did you have people who said like, hey, like here's kind of what's available, here's how to move through the world? So no, I'm gonna take that as a hard no.
That's hilarious.
No.
Suggestions, maybe, but not like a guidebook. You can't really give somebody a guidebook. You have to like, who said it was pooped out of?
That was it. Pooped out of your
After
conservatory,
you get pooped out from your conservatory or college, you it's kind of like, have you ever like had a fall where you like hit the ground and you're like, oh my God, like how did I get on the floor or like wherever? That's kind of good. Okay, so clearly everybody's on the same page. But like that's what I was kind of like, and I just sort of had to find my own way, like if an opportunity came my way, follow it. If I didn't like it or if it wasn't for me, okay, goodbye, and then go on to like the next thing, I think your path is constantly evolving and constantly changing, and most important thing is you have to be okay with that, or else you're gonna struggle and cause yourself a lot of shame and struggling and pain that you really don't need to put yourself through.
Well, and so what was the process of cultivating, whether it's like healthy habits for yourself personally, how you take care for your body, your mind, your spirit, or cultivating sort of healthy and effective and useful work habits to navigate this world? Like, what was that process? I mean, not that it was necessarily easy or like pretty, you know what I mean? Like, what did that look like to be at a place now where you're like, like everybody's sort of on their path, and in very different expressions. It's incredible, like all these different ways to go through, move through the world of professional dance in different ways. But what were sort of the signposts you had to build yourself?
I try trial and error, man. Like
Mhm.
you try something, then if you like it, great. Like just what you were saying. Like I still am trying to figure out my life, and I'm 26. Like I don't think I will always know exactly what I want to be when I grow up. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think
it's mysterious.
And I think it's really cool to look back and have perspective of like, oh man, I remember where I was at that time in my life and what was going through my head, and it's cool to see how much you grow and learn from it. Like now it's more exciting to see kind of what's to come and less like daunting and like make or break. Like if I don't have this particular path, then like I'm not gonna be successful and I'm not gonna be happy. So I think it's like being okay with trying things out and kind of navigating it there, and then looking back that's the worthwhile part, is seeing how much you grew and how much you learned.
Yeah, and like cultivating an awareness for when you're not happy and why. Like noticing that I hated my day job when I was teaching, and I dreaded it, and so I thought I should continue doing it because, hey, you have a day job in dance. I love waiting tables. I don't think about it when I'm not at work. I am social when I am at work, and I make my money, and it makes my life better. And so there's like a shame in like not choosing the day job that goes with your career, but like choose the day job that makes your life better. And yeah, just it's like Marie Kondoing your life.
That's so true.
I got rid of my stuff, and then I was like, I need to get rid of my job.
Changed.
Yeah.
Wait, for real? Like,
For real.
okay, Marie. All right. Well, we're the Netflix subscription. That's it's powerful, $6.99 a month or whatever.
But you feel like you know you better than anyone else knows you, and so this arbitrary timeline that's set up may fit you, and it may not, and you know, you knew in your gut and your soul and your however you I identify that you weren't happy doing what you were doing. And so knowing that is huge. Just like acknowledging that, and then even bigger to then sometimes you pivot, and that can be scary when you're in it and making that like choice to pivot. But you just gotta, there's stuff going on in there, and you have to listen to it sometimes, and not just listen to everything else that's out here.
It's like finding the comfort in being really uncomfortable. It's like,
And you learn your non-negotiables too. Like in those times of unhappiness, you learn what you need for you. And you may not have known it, you may have known it beforehand, but you learn it especially in those like harder times. Or I learned it in those harder times.
I also went to therapy too.
Yeah.
Sometimes that really helps.
Absolutely.
When you realize you're doing too much. And then you, like for me, I would just go, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And it was really hard for me to take a step back and just kind of stop doing everything. And now I realize where my limit is. And I know that if I push it, I know what's gonna happen afterwards. Like now I have the knowledge and like the awareness.
and it can really feel like you are what you do, or like if I'm not making output, am I creating anything valuable, or am I even an artist if I'm taking a month away from art? And
it impacts, like,
especially
kind
in
of
like
our
a capitalist society where it's all about like what you're putting out. It's like it doesn't give you space to take a step back, and like I took a few months away from taking class when like there was no audition season. I was just doing a lot of Alexander technique, and then came back to class and I just feel dance in a whole different way. And it's like, it's scary to not do the thing that makes you feel like yourself.
But also like we're in a culture right now too, like I read this article about like the hustle culture and like how we're like supposed to want to work 80 hours a week and like
Be happy about it. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
you know and
For my
then
$15 and no healthcare.
and you see that everyone else is working and it's just society kind of putting all these restrictions on what you're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, and it's also, I think, talks a lot about balance. Of, like, how do you balance your creative ambitions and dreams, and what would make you fully realized as an artist? And then also this piece of like, how are you committed to your environment and positionality is an interesting word. And so, how do you sort of balance that between the need or the desire, the want to be in right relationship with your community, you know, and doing well for others, while balancing your artistic dreams? Like, how do you navigate that in terms of, and I think that comes up with like JUNTOS local. What does it mean to be involved as an artist, but also as somebody who's a member of a community and sort of in good faith with that community?
Some of it I think depends on who you're doing it for. So like, am I making this piece because I want people to think that I'm continually working and I'm successful, blah, 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 or like what were my intentions? Or like, was I making it for myself? And I feel like, at least choreography, for me, that's like my most honest self. Like, I don't like to just make dance just to make dance and make it look cool. Like, it has, like, there's a reason. But I think it depends on who you're doing it for. Are you doing it to impress other people? You know, to not feel like you just did like 4 years of hell and, you know, it kind of depends on who you're doing it.
Yeah, I think about like, if I have an intention to make change in the world, whatever that means, it's like so hard to change myself that if I don't start with myself, how can I expect anyone to like be with me on that? And also just speaking to community, a huge thing for me was finding community out of school, just in general, because you can feel so isolated, especially here. And like, I was like, why am I depressed? Oh yeah, I don't have a community. I don't, like, I'm a very social person, didn't really realize that, and like, how do I find that in my life again? And yeah, so just finding community in general, or, because we're so surrounded by it that I took it so much for granted in school. And also one thing that I wanted to say tonight that this is unrelated, but I wanted to make sure I said it, is just that like the transition from college to being an adult is so underrated, and it's a huge transition. Like you've been a student for your entire life. You're like, what you do with your day is given to you all the time, and suddenly it's like anything. And so just like having patience with yourself in that is like the hugest thing. And I wish someone had told me this is huge, you know, like
And
it's
trusting that it'll
okay.
work out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
This is now the moment in the program to think about the question you're going to ask. We don't get to that point where it's like, who has questions, and it's like crickets, you know? So if you have something that's coming to your mind, think about what you want to ask. Get 2 more questions. We're going to write down the line. Do you have a fondest JUNTOS moment? You know, like one moment that you like treasure, that you carry with you wherever you go.
I remember, like, I think we were doing Paloma Negra, and I remember I like was closing my eyes while we were performing, and I was like, I've never done that before. Like where you just were so happy that you like just like close your eyes and you just do it. Like that's like pure bliss.
I have this distinct memory at the end of our Guatemala trip. The theme that Joe gave us was just looking for beauty everywhere, which was a really good contradiction for the like sort of emptiness I was feeling inside myself in that time in my life. And just being on stage in this center square in Guatemala with like hundreds of people had come to see us. It was night. The stars were above us, and we were just like dancing, and I felt just so full in the beauty of that moment. And yeah, it was sort of like I didn't need an answer or something. I just had that fullness and that feeling, which has stayed with me.
I have a very specific memory of one of our workshops. I don't know why JoVonna wasn't there to translate, but somehow I ended up wildly unprepared in the role of translator for our group. And it was incredible, and I just felt so empowered because I was going through this time of change in dance and not feeling very confident and not necessarily feeling like I had as much to offer as others did, but in this moment I did, and in this context, and I was able to connect 2 groups of people, and this was through language, not necessarily through dance, but it just was like this aha moment of like worth and beauty and connection and community and just being that kind of piece going between. It was a really powerful experience.
Guess it's my turn.
Very quiet over there.
I kind of have 2. Can I say both?
Totally.
Okay.
There are no rules here.
So I guess it's gonna go in like chronological order. So, wait, or were they in the same? Was it the same trip? Oh my God, they all blend together because it was such an awesome experience. Oh no, I can't remember. Okay, I'm just gonna, so I don't confuse myself. So the first time I ever went on a JUNTOS trip to Guatemala, we performed at a school, and I believe it was in JoVonna's father's hometown, and just the like rush of like all of these kids like coming up to you, like grabbing onto you as if like everything that you had shared with them they could like rub off of your body. That was just like you can't really fight back. I mean, you're really gonna fight back for like 100 school kids now, but like I just remember just standing there in the moment, like absorbing all of that like excited energy. And then the other one is the second JUNTOS trip to Mexico, and we were at an orphanage, and her name was Juanita. I remember she was so cute with this like super straight like raven black hair, and these, oh my God, these beautiful like dark brown eyes, like almost black. And we like made eye contact during whatever piece we were doing, and then I remember we were all standing in a line at the end of the show, and we just kept staring at each other, and then like after the show, she just came up to me and like grabbed my hand, and we were just sort of like inseparable until it was time to leave. So, you know, it's kind of going back to what I said, when like your spirit finds someone, and that's it, you know, you breaking that fourth wall, which is always really nice.
And what is, you're all writing now a letter to your younger selves, to be delivered on the eve of graduation. What does it say, y'all? What does it say?
Relax.
That's the first line.
For me, I think it's be patient with yourself.
I second that.
Don't expect everything and don't put so much pressure on yourself. It's just not, it's like not worth the anxiety, because you're beautiful, like you're great, you're an amazing person, you know, and just trust that you are, because everyone else sees it, you know.
I think for me it would be that it's definitely not going to be what you think it is, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That life is not linear, and knowing that ahead of time helps you be open to every opportunity that comes to you, or that you seek out sometimes too. But it's okay to zigzag.
It is. It's more fun.
Yeah.
It's more variation.
Meant
You
to-
learn so
meant
much
to
about
be.
you. Yeah.
It's totally meant to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, just staying
There's
present
no
with the
other way.
process and staying with yourself. Because worrying about other people's journeys is
It's just not worth it.
It's not worth it.
yeah.
You can celebrate those too, but
Yeah.
just not putting it on yourself.
Don't
Easier said
shame.
than done.
Yeah, don't shame yourself.
Listen, thank
It
you. A lot. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here, first of all. Thank you, both of you, so much for holding this space and being vulnerable and talking about your journeys and being honest. And I hope that everybody got something valuable from it, that it may calm the worrying vortex of anxiety of like my life, you know. So it was really wonderful. And Julia, thank you so much for inviting the things together. Yeah. And time for questions. Who's got them? Hands up. Thank you so much.
Someone gotta do it. Can you, I was wondering if you can, my name's Michaela, by the way.
Hey, Michaela.
I'm a senior in the ALA program right now. I also teach, and I teacher assist as well. And I was wondering if you could speak on like the balance between giving to others and also giving to yourself. And what that's been like, if you felt those like coming head to head as I do.
Something I've been thinking about a lot in Alexander technique, I don't know if anyone's familiar at all, but is how can I stay with myself while giving to others? So like I kind of use waiting tables as like a lab for like seeing what's going on within myself. So like instead of approaching it as like, what can I get for you? I'm all like just like extending myself out into all these other people's lives, but like showing up to the table, seeing, like taking a breath, being on the floor, and then like inviting them into my own energy. It's different than overextending myself all the time. And it's really hard to do that because the stimulus is so strong of like people pleasing, that's a personal habit of mine, or like wanting to appear a certain way, and I felt that with teaching so strongly, which is like what stepping back from that has helped me to like come back to it with more of a grounded presence. But I think that it's possible to stay in your own process if you're aware of it while you're engaging with others and not abandon yourself and your center.
I'm kind of in a similar, I guess, outcome through more therapy because I'm in social work school, so I've learned a lot of those like internal techniques to use when you start to feel that overextension or that lack of feeling grounded or that lack of awareness internally. And so I think therapy can be really helpful. I think whatever tool helps you get there in yourself. Alexander technique, you know, it's different for everyone, but that self-awareness shows you your limits, and sometimes you have to go out of them, just the reality of like paying rent and stuff too, but knowing that and then developing tools to help bring you back when you do have to go past it sometimes.
And even just the fact that you're already noticing that you feel overextended by something, or like how a certain job is having an effect on you, is so important and like useful for yourself to know. Yeah.
You can also say no to things too if you're feeling overextended, and that's also like a really hard thing to learn how to do. I have a really hard time saying no. Like, I love being there for people, and then of course I'm realizing like, well, I haven't taken care of myself in like 2 months. That has to stop. I have to say no, cancel my plans, cancel whatever. Even if I told the family a week in advance that I was gonna babysit for them, if I can't do it, I can't do it, because I'm not gonna be fully there for the task at hand, and I'd rather be fully there than half-ass it. So.
Yeah, I think having boundaries, and then if you're in the position of being able to like directly communicate with the person you're working with. I don't know, like with my choreography, like I know that everyone's bodies are different, so I'll give you a movement, but if it feels horrible, like let's adjust it. You know, I'm not sold on that one thing. I don't like the it's my way or the highway thing, and I think it's so much better if you can be honest with yourself and then come to kind of a connecting point, a dialogue. But I know some people aren't like that, so then it's figuring out how to take care of you first, and then set up your boundaries.
Yeah.
You're already noticing where those are,
Yeah.
so you're on the process of that.
Yeah. And I think that there's like a pressure to be a robot in this city. And the more that I show up as a human instead of a robot, because I can really show up as a robot, like I know how to do that. But like when I show up as a human, and it invites the people I'm with to also be that way, and then like we have empathy for each other, and we're not overextending ourselves to like meet some ideal thing. Yeah.
I'm Siobhan, and I'm also a senior in the BFA program, and something I'm dealing with a lot right now is not necessarily judgment, but just a lot of like questions from family members and other people in my life, like, what are you gonna do? Like, so what's next? What's the plan? And it just creates this big ball of anxiety inside of me. But I guess when you were in our place, like, what was going through your head, and like, how did you deal with that, and just sort of keep pushing forward?
I mean, I felt it, carried it for a while, you know, until I realized it wasn't as important. But yeah, you have, I mean, like I was saying earlier, people on Facebook, they're like, wow, your life looks so cool. And I'm like, dude, it's like not, you know, it's just an interface. But I think it took me a long time to like quit carrying it for other people, you know. But I don't know, I wish I had an easy answer, because I felt the pressure for sure from people.
I'd say that I gave into it too, and like found that job that didn't bring me joy, and tried to stick through that job to kind of answer those questions that kept being asked. And frankly, for me, those answers, those questions haven't stopped being asked even at this point. Like they keep happening, and I've learned to answer them more honestly. You know, I have this job and this is what I'm doing, and like, thank God, like I'm good now. I can be an adult. Like, but I definitely, if I could talk to myself back as a senior, I would tell myself. I guess I wouldn't tell myself not to do what I did because it got me here, but like, I wouldn't want somebody else to do that too. If I could share that.
I made a film about it. Like, just, using what you're feeling to be in your art. And everyone wants the best for you. That's what I see in those questions. And so, like, that's nice, thanks. I want that too, and I'm gonna figure it out. I trust me. I hope you do too, but if you don't, that's your problem, you know?
Hi, I'm Mary Beth. I'm a sophomore, BFA, and I'm double majoring in econ. So my question is, sometimes like sophomore year is very hard, which I found out. I didn't believe everyone, and then I was like, oh no, they weren't lying. But sometimes I'll voice my concerns to like teachers and kind of say like, oh, like I'm so tired and I don't know why, I don't feel fulfilled, what's going on? And a lot of times I'll be met with the answer that's like, oh, well, life after this is harder, so you should just get used to this. So what would you say otherwise, or like in what ways is life afterwards harder and also better? Like kind of how would you respond to that answer?
What I ended up finding out is like those teachers and mentors that say those things to you, they were navigating a completely different dance and art scene than we were.
Yeah.
Like they don't know what it's like right now. They can give us the technique and the tools and the whatever, but they're not in this current dance scene, so their perspective kind of doesn't matter to me because they're not navigating it currently. I felt like I didn't have a lot of mentor, you know, they were just like, oh yeah, well you're tired because you're whatever. I felt like almost over-prepared for like post-dance. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Like, because then it went from I'm dancing 20 hours a day to then like kind of nothing.
Yeah.
But for me, like they don't know the current scene, so I don't think they know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easy to make an excuse to ignore what you're feeling. Like, oh, it's gonna be harder 2 years from now, but it's all relative. I only exist in this present moment. 2 years from now, I'm gonna be someone totally different. I won't remember how I feel now. Like, it's
negating our feelings.
It's
too.
negating
It's telling you that it doesn't
your
matter.
experience now, and that's
Yeah.
where you are, so.
There's no attempt of like trying to understand what you're saying. Like hear me as a human being. Like I'm trying to tell you like I'm tired and something is not right. And there was I just remember being met sometimes with like a glass. Like those pigeons that fly into the doors.
Stop.
Not all teachers were like that. There were some who definitely like understood like our concerns, but like
Navigating the politics of that too, in that power structure like we were talking about earlier, like they are your teacher, so to a certain extent you need to advocate for yourself because you're the most important in that. I mean, your feelings have to be honored and addressed, but you have to be realistic in the interaction that you're in too, and you can't just say like, "F you, you're not listening," because
you can't.
then you failed. Like you can't do that. I think I would encourage not.
But everybody's wanted to.
Yeah. I would encourage not yielding when that doesn't sit well with you. And like that doesn't mean being like combative and like, coming at them, but continue to advocate and in different ways if the first way you tried doesn't come through to that glass wall, which it may not, your experience matters, your feelings matter, and if it's not good, then it has to be addressed in one way or another, and you may never get that, like somebody fully receiving what you're sharing, and you may need to go in different directions to get that, but you're acknowledging something in yourself, so don't push that away because somebody else does.
Feelings are valid.
Yeah.
Everyone repeats the things that they were told when they were that
It's true.
age, and I'm sure that's what they heard, and so it's like, if they don't have enough attention to be there with you, that's the response you're probably gonna get, so.
Way back.
Hi. So I'm interested in knowing how your experiences post-graduation and post-JUNTOS, how have they shaped your own practice constructs of community and advocacy, both like domestically and abroad?
Can you repeat the last part of that?
So like how have you come to see the idea of community and advocacy in dance, both here and within like a global context? 'Cause
You have a lot of power to create your community, and I think I've learned to be really intentional about how I do that. There are like enclaves that you naturally may fall into, and that is good too, but there's a lot more out there in the world, and in the city, and so noticing and then being intentional about the spaces and the community that you put yourself into, and if that's internationally, then that brings you joy too, then doing that in a way that brings you that joy. Like since JUNTOS, I've sought out opportunities like that where I can go abroad and build that community. I'm going on to Jordan on Thursday actually, for a completely different kind of trip, social worky trip. But that's the type of community too. Like community is just a broad definition. It doesn't have to be the people that are close to you geographically or identity-wise. That maybe it wasn't.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah.
Way to silence a room.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Yeah, the one thought I have is that like my communities felt sort of handed to me until I stopped being a student, and then I had to seek them out. And I didn't realize that that's something I had to do. So then I was like, where's my community? And figuring out which ones to seek out is a learning process, or has been for me. And yeah, that's just a skill that I didn't develop until after school. That is very much still in process. Yeah.
I feel like it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Depending on where your interests decide to go.
Mark, you have a question?
Hi, I'm the guy sitting on the ground. Hello. Also, I'm sorry if the photo sound was really annoying. It's just I have no other option. So my question is, so we were talking about outreach and balancing what you do for other people and what you do for yourself. I guess I wanted to ask, how important is that to you guys domestically speaking? So like, when you are thinking about doing social work and like kind of reaching out to do important things with your dance, right? Like how does that factor into your life domestically? Is I guess my question, like here in New York or wherever it is that you guys are. That's my question. I don't know if it was clear.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah.
Sorry. I was
My, like,
listening the first time, but I feel like I need to hear it one more time.
So how important is outreach when you're here? Like, how does that factor into your life, into the everyday?
Well, and I will say that JUNTOS is now building out this new program called JUNTOS Local, which I think is trying
Yeah.
to address that question of like, what does it mean to bring the work back? What does it mean to have not something you sort of keep under lock and key fondly, or in your memory and in your heart, but like how do you bring that new? I mean, the word is a praxis. And what is the practice of doing work here? I mean, Julia.
Doing Instagram Live right now.
Oh. Hey, internet.
Oh, good.
Like and subscribe.
Like it, swipe up, swipe up.
How is it important to JUNTOS, or how is it important to me?
You think of like what's to be hoped for with JUNTOS Local? Like where did it? Here, we're gonna flip it. There's no script. We do what we want.
This is very on the spot.
Yeah.
I think JUNTOS local work is really important because when you're abroad, you're seeking out and you're kind of finding a community like far away, but there's also so much work that needs to be done in a city like New York, where it's like the diversity is crazy and it's amazing and it's beautiful. So being able to take like those ideas and principles and like bring them back to your city is something that's even sometimes more special. I've found like being able to like be in JUNTOS Local and like work on the local programming here, like and work with alumni and bridge all of those things together, and like be in your home. Like I think like that's a really special thing. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Hi.
Thank you for the questions.
I'm Lorena. I am a senior dance major at Marymount. And I'm absolutely terrified. What has kept you guys in New York? Or have you found any opportunities outside of New York or outside of the United States, even like looking at other countries as a place to create your own dance work or to be a professional dancer or a professional person in the dance world? Not only looking at them as, places to go and teach or to go and do outreach, but as places where to work. Yeah.
Some of it is you get kind of comfy, like you've been living here for 4 years or longer, and it kind of just makes sense to stay and keep continuing and seeing what the opportunities are. Unless you find that gig outside or you move home or whatever you do. But I think it's already such a leap to finish and graduate that at least you are here. Like at least, I'm from Arizona, and like moving here from there was like so scary. And I think that it just kind of sometimes makes sense to stay and navigate that field a little bit more.
I came to New York after school because I was in Boston, and I came purely because of like job opportunities in like musical theater, and I think that that's like pretty much the main reason that I'm still here. I think like my seasons here have been interesting. At first I loved it, and now I'm like, New York. But yeah, there's so much going on here that like I feel like I pick and choose and find the places here that make this place important for me. But it's always really enlightening to go somewhere else and like do regional theater in other cities and remember that this isn't the world. Yeah, I don't know.
I've always wanted to live here, like since I was a kid. I'm from Philly originally, and I thought the Philly skyline was like the New York skyline. I don't know why, but that's what I thought. But I'm kind of with Winnie, like since I've always wanted to live here, and I'm living my dream quite literally. Like I want to see how long I can stay here and like you know, tough it out and see what more I can make of it for myself. But I've been kind of itching to like go to Europe and like see what's over there. I'm just very curious. So, you know, I mean, maybe I end up there and then I can circle back around to New York, you know, you never know. So I feel like it'll always be like a home base, but it'll be good to like travel away. You can always come back. It'll always be here, hopefully.
Rising water levels.
There's so much going on in New York too that you really can. There's a lot of opportunities to tailor to meet you where you're at, and artistically and not artistically too. That I think makes New York kind of unique. I'm from here originally. I have a really serious love-hate relationship with it. So, but I think that's what I left, and that's what brought me back. Is that like that flexibility to grow in the same space. And
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I feel like it's a city that makes you look at yourself a lot, which is kind of ugly and hard and terrifying. But it has a lot of like, it brings a lot to you.
It does.
Yeah.
It's like a very odd gift.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm a senior. Every day's a winding road. Every day. Anywho, I just want you to know, like within your different fields, how do you stay motivated? I'm coming on to this 4th year. It's been some stuff, and it's sometimes your motivation dwindles, and it's hard to figure out, why do I wake up every morning? Why do I go to this ballet class? Like, I've literally gone to ballet, and then like if I do one more time, I'm going to throw myself out of this nice pretty window. But like, how do you like now that you're not in school, that you're not in such a structured environment, how do you find the motivation to keep going, to keep creating the work, to keep doing what you're doing, so that you can fulfill your dream, or just fulfill the motivation that's within you?
It's a really good question. And I don't always feel motivated. Like, right now, I don't really feel like making anything. And saying that is kind of vulnerable and weird, but I'll have another season where I do. And yeah, I think having people supporting you to push you to remind yourself sometimes, or to hold you accountable for things that you actually do know you want to do, and not like making yourself do everything all the time. But like, I'm gonna go to class with you and I'm gonna see you there, because if I didn't make that plan with you, I would maybe sleep. And
maybe.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. But also like giving yourself time and slack, and like, you don't have to kill yourself and go to ballet. I haven't gone to ballet in months. Like, and I can still do a tantu. So, you know, if you're killing yourself doing it, why are you doing it? We do it because something in it is like amazing for us. And if I'm not feeling that, then I don't want to force myself to feel it.
Yeah, making sure you're doing it for yourself too. And like, there are a lot of times when I'm not motivated at all, and I think realizing that I was just making myself do it, even though I didn't really, yeah, it's, sorry, I'm stuttering, but I think when you have the motivation, go for it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when you're having a really great turn day and you keep doing 4s, and you're like, I'm gonna do so many 4s today because I can't do 2 tomorrow. Like, you just like go with it while you have it, and then don't be your, ride that wave, and don't beat yourself up about it if you're not, you know.
You can't be motivated all the time.
I also think like using those things as a guide, like the things that feel really good in your day, in your life in general, like using that as a guide to like finding that thing that is gonna make you feel really fulfilled. Like for me, it's just been literally trial and error, and I'm like, okay, this is not something I want to do, and this is not something I want to do, and this is not, and this is not. And I still don't know what I want, but I'm using that as a guide, like what's positive, what's negative, and like hopefully getting to that point someday.
And being a human, like you're just not gonna be happy every day. It's just not. It's not how we live in the world, and that is okay. But kind of taking note of yourself over time, and I think like self-care is a huge buzzword, but like using those pieces of joy that you have and really grasping onto them, and because the grind can get real and it can get hard, and sometimes you need to be in that grind and you need to go to work when you don't want to go to work, or you know, you need to create and you don't feel inspired, but taking those pieces of joy and like trying to direct your life towards them as much as you can, knowing that it's not always gonna be there, but it can be most of the time if you know, work that way. And then sometimes you have to change that too. So it's not like one thing you find and then you have it and then you're happy. Like it would be incredible if it was.
Hi, my name's Kayla, and I'm a freshman in the BFA program here. And like, I know like the hardest years are yet to come. But like sometimes I feel like I'm just like floating around in my classes, and like maybe I'm not being seen, or like I'm improving the way I thought I would. And so like I guess I want to know, like, how'd you guys make sure that at the end of the 4 years, like not only that you survived, but you felt accomplished in what you did?
I felt like you. Like I definitely felt unseen, like I was kind of like the underdog. I wasn't picked for a lot of things, and that was really hard. But I think coming out of it is I just like, I don't want to say like I milked it, but like I did the choreography things that were offered, and like I did as many of the opportunities as I could, and then twisted it and made it my own so that they didn't have me. Do you know what I mean? That it wasn't all on their terms. But I definitely tried to focus on myself a little bit more and be proud of like what I did and how I performed, and even if I didn't really get picked for all of the things, or I didn't get all the corrections or anything like that. But it's a hard place to like trust yourself in.
Growth happens even if it's not externally validated. So, no.
Yeah.
Which is so hard. I mean, it's just not how our society is structured to value that. But like you're growing and changing, and no matter what you're doing, you're in that process. And so, I guess trying to be generous with yourself and acknowledging that, even if you don't feel like it's being acknowledged by others.
And you still have years left too. Do you know what I mean? It's like cool that you're thinking about it now and like acknowledging it, instead of just kind of freaking out your senior year. But you still have time to kind of explore yourself and navigate that field and be cool with how your time was there.
Yeah. It's like your education, and so like the people who didn't see you now aren't gonna be there when you leave, and you're gonna be putting yourself out there to be seen by whoever you want to be seen by. And so whatever you took from the time that you were growing and working on yourself is what they're gonna see. But yeah, it's hard to feel